the EOS Life is what they call it, is doing what you love with people that you love, making a huge difference, being compensated appropriately, with time for other passions. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Flow Over Fear podcast, where it is our mission to help you to rise above fear and realize your ultimate potential in leadership and life. I'm your host, Adam Hill, and it is my goal to share with you the human side of high performance. My guests share their experience with fear, anxiety, struggle, challenge, and most importantly, despite all of it, how they rose above it to achieve incredible results. So, if you're ready to rise up, let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Flow Over Fear. And today, I want to talk about EOS. You may be asking yourself, if you don't know what it is, what the heck is EOS? And I'll tell you that there's a book for that. There's a book called What the Heck is EOS? But instead of telling you to go read that book, which I will because it's a great book, I'm going to tell you what it is. It is the Entrepreneurial Operating System that was created by Gino Wickman in the book Traction. And Gino wrote that book Traction based on some of the philosophies that he'd used to build his businesses and help him to help other companies build theirs. And since then, it has become the monster that is EOS. And many companies, including our company, including my personal brand, use this system as an operating system for our businesses. And there are businesses that are in the millions of dollars of revenue, in the billions of dollars of revenue, and those just starting out that are using the system. The beautiful thing about this program, without getting into too much detail, and the reason, by the way, I want to talk about this today is I just got back from a conference on EOS. It was in Indianapolis. There was about 2,000 people there representing many companies, all there to build their knowledge on this system. And while I talk about it, it may sound like I'm kind of talking about a cult, and yeah, you're not wrong. It's it's a bit culty, but which is, by the way, very punny for the fact that we were in Indianapolis and their team is the Colts. So go figure. But I digress. The reason I am so attracted to this operating system and I'm so fanatical about it is because of the philosophy that comes around it. And the philosophy that I would love to build a business around, that I would love to provide, the opportunities that I would love to provide for employees, and the idea that we don't just have a lot of personal fear in our lives, that our businesses have fear. Our businesses have fear because of the same level of uncertainties or challenges or outside forces that may impact us. And seeing that for the first few years of running a company, with 150 employees, I saw those fears, and I held those fears. Those fears were a part of me, and I really don't want anyone to go through that. And having a system like this, like whether it be EOS or any kind of operating system that has the components to help you succeed, what it does is it provides a mechanism for discipline, which I find incredibly powerful, because anytime you can have a framework for discipline, that's where you can start to level up. I mean, I will relate this to where I've succeeded anywhere in my life. And I'm sure this applies to many of you as well, is that if you look back on something that you've done really well, that you've succeeded with, for me, it was, music, say, playing the cello when I was young, or, Ironman triathlon when I was much older. I was able to do those things with discipline. And the reason I was able to do those things with discipline is because there was a framework. With music, there was a framework that allowed me to, of how I practice. I have to practice these things every day. And I have to do it this many times, and I have to do it with this much intensity or less or whatever. Same with triathlon. Same with getting sober. Sobriety had a framework, 12 steps. And I recognize that frameworks are a very powerful tool to develop, to give you the mechanism for discipline. They don't lead to discipline, but they give you the mechanism to implement discipline. And that's the powerful thing. And when I say discipline, Many people hear that word and they think punishment, but that's not what it means. I mean, yes, that is a definition of it, like, for, when, for punishment. But what discipline really is, it's the act of conviction with something, with that you're doing something with conviction and consistency over long periods of time. That discipline sits on the top of willpower. Willpower is not enough to get you to the finish line. Willpower ends, but discipline gets you there. And discipline is effective when you have the right framework to use. That's where EOS has come in for us. And the reason I loved it is because of the philosophy around it. This is the reason I'm a fanatic around it, because I have this on my water bottle, which I'm not drinking enough of today because I'm not, down those lines yet. But the EOS Life is what they call it, is doing what you love with people that you love, making a huge difference, being compensated appropriately, with time for other passions. And that's the important part is I love that whole philosophy, because when we're at work, we either get immersed in it and we stay in it. We don't like it. We're not happy. We don't like the people we work with, or we're not making a big difference, or we don't feel like we are. And we're there for a long period of time. We don't have time to do anything else. That's not a fulfilling life. But if you want to build a fulfilling life for yourself, for your employees, and all of those stakeholders involved, then being disciplined is your path to freedom. That's something that Jocko Willink says, is that discipline equals freedom. Discipline is your path to freedom. And I've seen this on both sides, where in certain areas of business or life where you're not disciplined, you're running around with your head cut off, and it just doesn't feel like you're getting anything done. You're not gaining that traction, which is why Gino, I believe, wrote the book. And having come off of this EOS conference, I am re-energized about this whole operating system and the fact that we implemented it in our business and in my personal brand. We've been operating with it in our business for about a little over a year and a half now, almost 2 years. And we've implemented it at our leadership level, our management level. And, we're starting to build on it. It's not fully in there yet, but we're still building on it. We're still building those levels of discipline. But at this conference, it fired me up because I was learning a lot more. I was learning from other companies that were a lot farther down the path that we are, things that they're doing well, things that are working for them, things that they wish they could have done differently, and learning from some of the master implementers there, and also being able to spend a lot of quality time with my own implementer, Richard Price, who is a very, very strong and a very, very good, very great implementer, having worked with us for the last year and a half. And so today I want to talk a little bit about that conference. And I want to share three important lessons that I learned from this conference, or that were reinforced in me about this EOS program. And the first thing I want to share is that faith and discipline can work in harmony. And when you find that harmony, you can find strength in your business. A lot of us, and the reason that this is important is because there are a lot of unknowns in business, a lot of unknowns. And that's where the fear lives. That's where the fear lives, is in that uncertainty. So when you have that uncertainty in the business, people get scared. People start to make assumptions. People start to judge. People start to blame. People, the culture gets a little bit bad. So when there's uncertainty, that kind of stuff happens. But here's the thing about uncertainty is, faith, sometimes in that uncertainty, you have to have faith. That's just the bottom line. There's going to be a lot of uncertainty. And so building faith here's what I believe with regard to faith in business. Building faith involves building conviction. Now, conviction is not necessarily that an outcome is certain to happen. Conviction is operating in that faith, but with so much certainty in yourself, so much strength of vision, so much strength of motivation that you are going to move in that direction, and that is the deciding factor. That's the leadership element of conviction, and that's where we rise above fear. And ultimately why I'm doing this here is I want to help people find conviction, because conviction is not the absence of fear, but it is that empowered courage that lives right above it. That's where we start to rise above it. We embrace it. We build that conviction. And so faith and conviction kind of go hand in hand in that regard. You have faith that everything is going to work out as long as you stay disciplined. So you find the right set of processes, the right set of tools, the right set of elements. And there are a lot of tools that are in EOS, which is why I love it. Because faith without any kind of action, as we've heard many times, is useless. It doesn't work. Nothing happens. It doesn't go anywhere. So the action, so the faith is a very important element, but having that action piece with discipline is critical. Everybody has to be moving in the same direction. So there are a lot of tools within the EOS world where that works. You have an accountability chart where you have the right set of people and the right set of seats, where you have a scorecard where you're measuring the right set of things, and you're doing so with discipline, and you're holding people accountable. Those are powerful tools that are in the EOS toolbox. And one of the speakers at this event, Tiffany Sauter, who is a business consultant in marketing and former Fortune 5000, all this kind of stuff, kind of businesswoman. She gave a very powerful talk, and it was one of my favorites of the whole event. Where she talked about 3 things that help you to find that discipline and that faith that lean into it. And it really involves living vulnerably. It's deciding to decide, making sure that you're not just you're not just talking about the problems, that you're actually making the decisions, and that you're choosing discipline. Discipline is a choice, because you could choose not to, and that's the easy choice, by the way. That's the comfortable right now choice. Not having discipline is the comfortable right now choice. That first piece of living vulnerably is that piece of like having that honesty, being honest, having an honest team, and being willing to put yourself out there toward unexpected or unknown results. Putting an idea out there boldly. That's where creating a safe place for leadership to be able to present those ideas without a lot of risk to presenting those ideas is important. So being able to create a culture of living vulnerably, deciding to decide, again, that's just making sure you're actually making the decisions and moving forward with them, and choosing discipline. Those are the 3 elements that she talked about. The EOS tools themselves, like I was talking about earlier, don't necessarily bring the discipline. They provide the mechanism for discipline to exist. But the important thing is that leadership is building a culture around discipline. And they can drive that by having discipline in themselves, and by basically putting those accountability, those discipline structures in place, and making the decisions based on them, making the moves based on those, moving the company in the direction of greater discipline. And so that was the first element, really. Faith and discipline can work in harmony with one another, and you can create a very powerful business out of that. Now, the second piece that I was reinforced in this EOS conference was that a quality strategy, a quality business plan that you're executing on, includes a roadmap of high-level targets that descend all the way to short-term rocks. And this is something that's consistent with what I like to share about how I was able to succeed in a lot of areas of life. Is that when you're looking out in those distant targets, in those distant, what you want to achieve in the way distant future, you want to have a pretty broad scope of what you want to achieve, but you want to have conviction over what you want to achieve, later in life. Whether you want to be, if you want to be a business that serves 1 million people, say, and you're just starting out, that could be the 10-year target. But that you have to bring that goal backward. You have to work backward to get to the very next step. And so this is something that I call usually the prioritization funnel. It starts with a big, what I call, a 3C dream. It's convicted, it's courageous, and you have clarity. and you drop that into the top of a funnel, and it goes down, and you create your your 3-year or your 5-year target of where you want to get to, your 5-year goals of what you want to achieve in the next 5 years. You break that down into the next year goal, and then you break those down into what are the things I need to achieve this quarter. And then that gets down to like, well, great, what am I going to do this week? And then finally, today, what am I going to do to achieve those weekly goals? So breaking those into a funnel. EOS does something very, very similar. They have what's called a vision traction organizer, which is a 2-page document that basically breaks down your entire vision for the company, your core values, and it takes those and you set up a 10-year target, what you want to achieve in the next 10 years. Then you have a 3-year picture. What does your company look like 3 years from now? In absolute clarity, what kind of revenue are you generating? What kind of profit are you generating? What kind of, how many people do you have? Who are you serving? What does that look like? And then finally, a 1-year plan. A 1-year plan is basically, what do I want to achieve by the end of this year? What is my revenue target? What is my profit target? What are my key measurables? All of that good stuff. And you're breaking that down into 90-day rocks. What are the things I can achieve in the next 90 days that can get me to my goal, get me closer to my goals? And that's an important one, because 90 days, you may hear that a lot. You hear that in fitness. You hear that in you hear that in lots of different finance programs. You hear about these kind of things. They're either 12-week programs or they're 90-day programs. There are a lot of 90-day fitness programs. The reason that is because when you have a big project or a project that you're working on or something that you want to achieve, we tend to have, our attention tends to be set in 90-day increments. So when we set those targets, and they're super long out, think about a time when you've wanted to achieve something in the next year. How quickly have you forgotten about it? How quickly do people drop out of their New Year's resolutions? By the month of March or April. That's 90 days in. So that's why people think in 90-day increments. That's why it's best to break those goals down into 90-day rocks that you could tackle in that time. And getting even further, one of the great things that I learned in this conference that I didn't hear about before, which is really, really powerful, and I'm going to take it into my future planning, is the idea of rock planning, of breaking that rock down even into weekly tasks and things that I can even get down to the daily task. So that whole idea of building a roadmap to your success is hugely powerful in business, and a lot of people ignore it. They are gung-ho about the long-term vision of like, I want to achieve this in 10 years. But really what happens is they look at that vision for the next 10 years, they ignore all of the incremental steps, and they spin their wheels today. Is that you? Have you ever done that? I know I have. I've wanted to achieve a lot of things in my life where it's just like, I love to do that, but I'm spinning my wheels today. I'm not making progress on it. How can you take that long-term big goal, break it into something that you can achieve today? Such a powerful, powerful tool. And it brings up the the whole Gates law. If you've ever heard of the Gates law, it's that we tend to overestimate what we can achieve in 1 year, but we underestimate what we can achieve in 10 years. This tool, this VTO, this idea of a quality strategy and a roadmap helps us to achieve that in a better way. And the final thing that I want to share with you, the third thing that was reinforced in this EOS conference that I think everybody inherently knows, is that the right person, the right seat is vital to becoming a great company. It really starts with who, not how. And that is a book. Who, Not How is a book that was written by Benjamin Hardy, who was a speaker at this event. He's actually written a new book that's coming out in May that I have an advanced copy of, called 10X is Easier Than 2X. He gave a speech on that, which was really, really great. And I've also heard about that book from a number of other guys that I've had on this podcast that are associated with GoBundance, who've had a chance to interview Mr. Hardy. With regard to how that looks on RPRS, right person, right seat is abbreviated RPRS. We tend to, look at these things like, we don't want to address the elephants in the room a lot of times with regard to, what seats we need. And it really starts with identifying the seats that we need in the company, in our business, where we're getting value and where we can add value. Because if there's any element of misalignment there, or toxicity or anything like that, that's just not working, it bleeds into the organization. And it's important and difficult. It's so difficult to be honest about that. It's so difficult to work through that. But it's also the way of creating a culture that is so 100% aligned with the core values that you represent, with the vision that you're moving toward, and making sure that everybody is becoming fulfilled and in their right seat. That's the way you get to the EOS life, that life that is satisfying for all, is that everybody has to be honest of, is this the right seat, right person in the right seat? Is that person happy in this seat? And if they're not, we have to get honest about that to move the company for the greater good of the company. It's not always easy to do, and it doesn't sound compassionate, but truly, from what I've learned in leading organizations and in this process itself, it's so important because working for the benefit of the greater good of the company, of the values of where you want to go, it can be tarnished by the wrong person or the wrong seat, or the wrong person in the wrong seat. And you can start working to the detriment of those that are really contributing and really wanting the best interest and aligned with that vision. When you are able to have a team that is aligned, that meets all of those qualities, that is honest, that is creating a safe space, that is creating a tremendous value. It's an unstoppable flywheel. And this comes from Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, with regard to the RPRS. It's addressing the brutal facts, but while still maintaining the faith and the discipline. That's part of that discipline. It all kind of comes together, right? It's not an easy task, and it's by no means perfect, because we're still all human, and we need to care about one another and our humanity. But sometimes the best way we can care about one another is to make sure that everybody is in the right seat and in the right place. So those were really, really powerful things that I got out of many. By the way, there were many, many things that I couldn't list. There were so many great seminars that I went to at this event. This was truly one of the most valuable conferences I've been to, and it reinforced how glad I am to be implementing EOS in our company, and how glad I am to be implementing it in this personal brand here, because I truly, truly believe that this will help us to become the best company, serving in the best way that we possibly can, with the right people. We're truly designing a life of doing what we love with the people we love, while making a huge difference, being compensated appropriately, and making time for other passions, so that we can continue to serve the world in the right way. So anyway, thank you for joining me today. I appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to the Flow Over Fear podcast. If you'd like to learn more about getting into flow and learn the foundations of flow, I have a free video series on my website at www.adamcliffordhill.com called The Foundations of Flow. Feel free to go there and download it and start your journey to rising above fear and achieving greater flow in your life. And if you like this episode, and I'm guessing you did if you stuck around for this long, then please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button, and you will receive notifications when I have new interviews, new recaps, and new trainings that pop up on YouTube. Thanks again for joining us.